Can Manchester United win in the FA Cup final against Manchester City? Well, it's going to be difficult, but there is one thing which I think can really help Erik ten Hag's side going into this match. Of course, looking at the context outside, Manchester City have just won their 4th Premier League title. Manchester United, meanwhile, have finished in 8th position in the league, which is their worst in Premier League history. It's complete opposites. In theory, Pep Guardiola's side should win. They won the Manchester derby in the FA Cup final last year. But there is definitely a chance for United, but they're going to have to play their cards right. Now, I think in order to speak about what United could do to try and win this game, you've got to look at where they've been successful against City under Erik ten Hag. Now, there's 2 games in particular which correlate quite well with the topic which I'm speaking about, and they are the 2-1 win at Old Trafford last season and the FA Cup defeat last year. So, in both of those games, United, in one of them, came back to win the game after being 1 goal behind. And in the FA Cup final, they were 2-1 down and lost the game 2-1. But I think one thing people forget about that cup final, mainly because we lost, is that United really could have got an equaliser in those last 20 minutes of the game. Both times, in the Old Trafford game and in the FA Cup game, United really pushed City in the last 20 or 25 minutes of the game. And one thing happened in both of those games. Alejandro Garnacho came off the bench for Christian Eriksen, and he had a major impact in both games. So quickly going back to the Old Trafford win, and United got 2 goals really quickly after Garnacho came on. He replaced Christian Eriksen on 72 minutes. United scored their equaliser 6 minutes later, and then Garnacho had a really big part to play in Marcus Rashford's winner 4 minutes after that. So if we look at the footage here, it essentially just shows a really smart movement from Garnacho, and I remember praising this at the time because he's really young, really raw, but the curved run, and he was constantly causing danger on the transition because United brought on that extra pace. And yeah, he done really well to get the second cross into the box after his first one was blocked. But it was actually the FA Cup final which had more examples of Garnacho really troubling City's backline despite losing the game. So he came on 10 minutes earlier in that tie, and United were backs against the wall. They were 2-1 down. They were just trying to stay in the game. And there were multiple different moments where Garnacho would either try and test the fullback on the outside or kind of drift inside and do a couple 1-2s with players centrally. It's actually how United got their biggest chance, where Garnacho done a 1-2 inside and he tried whipping the ball to the far post, and it was inches away. But in that last 20 minutes, he really caused a lot of trouble for City, and on another day he might have got an equaliser. So ultimately, the main thing that I'm trying to say is that United need a real option off the bench. Garnacho was that last season, not just in City games but in other games across the season. He was really useful to come off the bench and almost reignite games where United was slowly petering away, and that's what you need against City, because they will work you off the park. In a lot of other games we've played against City, especially the games this year, United have almost started okay, but then slowly this City team pass you off the park and they make you work really hard. And if you're not going to have those outlets to come on in the second half, it's a really, really difficult game for you to play. But the one big problem with this idea is that Garnacho's not a bench player anymore. In fact, he's started 37 games in a row. So it would be a massive, massive call for Erik ten Hag to bench the Argentine for this kind of tactic, which of course worked at periods last season, but that's when Garnacho was coming off the bench constantly. It might throw his game off. Of course, he has looked quite tired in recent weeks. I was surprised he didn't get a rest on the last Premier League game against Brighton, but I think Garnacho on the bench would be too big of a call. So which United forward, winger can offer that? I think there's 2. I think you're either looking at Marcus Rashford or Rasmus Højlund. I mean, both of them could potentially be on the bench, with Højlund starting the last 2 on the bench and scoring when he's come on. But I feel like despite form, Rashford can really turn the game on its head, and he's been in poor form. That's completely acknowledgeable. No one is denying that. But if Garnacho's going to be on the pitch from the off, working tirelessly throughout the game, I think United need to try and stay in it and then use players like Højlund or Rashford to really make an impact in the game. And that's the other point, which is the most important one, and it's a lot easier said than done. But United need to stay in this game until that last 20 to 30 minutes when you are looking to bring on subs to try and turn the game in your favour. United can't let the game get away from them. Whether they're 1-0 down, drawing, 2-1 down, they need to keep it close. They can't let City run away with things, which they can do to almost any side in Europe. So defensively, United are going to literally need to be perfect, which thankfully there are defenders coming back from injury. Lisandro Martinez, Varane, there's going to be choices there. And then in the midfield, United need to be careful as well, because across the season, we've seen teams open United up through the middle, and if that happens in the final on the Wembley pitch, which is a massive pitch, United will get terrorised. So United need to be defensively solid, and if they do go behind, they can't crumble. They need to just stay in the game. And then in the second half, players like Rashford, players like Højlund, if Garnacho, I mean, I'd be completely surprised to see Garnacho off the bench, but he's really good at that role. He was amazing at it last season. So potentially it's in the back of Erik ten Hag's mind, but I believe that he probably deserves to start the cup final. And yeah, I don't really see Antony or Amad Diallo as players who can do that kind of role against City, where you might need to use your pace to get in behind, be a threat on the transition, but get your team up the pitch as well, because United are going to be defending deep. They're going to have a lot of time where they're moving, following the ball, using up energy, so you need those players to come off the bench and get you up the field essentially. You've got to hope that Rashford is in the mood, because I feel like him coming off the bench, because that's where I expect him to start, can be the make or break moment for Manchester United in this game. And it will be interesting because of course it was almost Garnacho last year supplementing Rashford coming off the bench and helping him, and now it almost seems like roles reversed. So it's going to be an interesting game. Hopefully United can be competitive, and then anything can happen. It's cup football, it's a final, it's a one-off game, and fingers crossed that United can get the win. I'd be really interested to see what you guys think of that in the comments below, and also what else you think Ten Hag needs to do in this final to try and get a result against City. If you enjoyed the video, we'd appreciate it if you smash the like button below, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and that's all from me. We'll see you in the next one.